everybody. It is Thursday. It is December the 6th. It's just after 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm Kevin Harnett, and we are joined today for this Wave 3 News Weather Hangout by not only members of our team, but our partners over at the National Weather Service. I'm Kevin. Of course, Ryan is sitting next to me here in the weather office, and Brian Good is joining us from home. And there's Joe Sullivan from the National Weather Service. You'll also have a chance to see Justin Logan popping in. He's traveling right now, but he'll be joining the conversation coming up in just a few. A lot of people asking about the upcoming weekend storm, and that's something we're going to be focusing on over the next few minutes here. Guys, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Let's just get to it. I mean, first of all, let's talk about what's happening now and kind of where we've been this winter. We had that ice, which was a little bit of an anomaly because of the amounts so early in the season, and then the leaves hanging on so late in the season. All the winter weather lovers, Brian, that's including you, are loving the winter so far, but they're waiting for the big snow, right?
I've been waiting for years for the big snow, just for the record, okay?
You didn't have enough the first day of spring this year, Brian? You were in the weather garden with snow on your head?
Wasn't that beautiful? Those wet snows by far are my favorite. We just never get them in the core of the season, but I digress. So.
Seems like it only snows in March these days.
It certainly
we didn't have spring this year. We just went straight from winter to summer in about 6 days, it seemed like, back in April. Yeah.
Joe, I know your team is gathered there as well, working on not only the forecast for this evening, but looking ahead to the weekend.
Right. Yeah. In fact, Ron, who's working that period right now, was on a conference call earlier this afternoon, and basically it stretched all the way from Albuquerque was on the call, and so you know that it's a big storm when you're on the same conference call for winter weather event with Albuquerque, and it went all the way up through here. And
wow!
And the next couple of days they'll be taking it straight out to the coastline, so it looks like it's going to be a big one for somebody. We're hoping it stays farther south, though.
Yeah, somebody, the key word there. Hey, let's jump to the maps. I want to point out what's happening now for folks that are saying, well, what can we expect here? And this is this evening. This light snow is just that. It's very light, moving across central Indiana, fading as it moves in, starts as a period of light rain later this afternoon and into the early evening. And that fizzles with just a few snow showers, but our temperatures are well above freezing. We expect no problems with this as it moves through this evening. Now, we could see some refreezing tonight into early tomorrow. That residual moisture could very well give us at least the opportunity to see a slick spot or two for early Friday. But now let's look to what we've been alluding to and talking about, and that's the next winter storm. You saw the watches already lined up from Texas through parts of Arkansas, getting closer to us. But it is that area of low pressure that's just now moving into the coast that we're going to be watching. And guys, this is so important because we're just now starting to get more information, meaning the upper level data.
Yeah, and that upper level data is going to be so crucial because we're going to have to see what exactly happens with the interaction between this northern low in Canada over Hudson Bay as of early Sunday morning, how strong that's going to be, how it's going to suppress the high pressure and therefore the Gulf low pressure that's going to give us this storm. The other question is, aside from the synoptic features here, how will it impact us on more of a mesoscale or a closer in sort of scenario here with rain, snow, freezing rain, and sleet? Who gets all of that? How much do we see? And where is going to be the exact band of that? And it looks like somewhere between Tennessee and Kentucky. At this point, that's all the confidence we have, Kevin.
Well, and let's talk about that, guys, and back that up just one map, Ryan, because let's just talk about the maps that we are looking at. For folks at home, it's that area of low pressure, the upper level data, so important. Joe, I know you guys have been analyzing that. Brian, I saw on the blog today, you've analyzed that. That is critical, along with the other features that you see here, both the high and the low pressure centers to our north.
Yeah, and we've been watching it for over a week now, and I was working last Sunday, and just hour by hour, I think last night when I saw your blog with Mark Jarvis, you were talking about getting the 6 and 18-hour Zulu data, and it's been flopping back and forth. At one point, it looked like we were going to get it clear up here to Louisville, and then it went down into Tennessee. And right now, the confidence factor is really low in exactly where it's going to be. But I think what you're going to see is one of those really tightly drawn lines where if you fly over it the next day, you're going to see bare ground on the north side, and around a distinct white line with all the snow directly to the south of it by, just 15 miles or so.
Yeah, Joe and guys, this is what really fascinates me about this is that it reminds me so much of like what the East Coast deals with when it comes to tracking hurricanes, because we have it in the system in the models for days and days and days until we track it, and there's a lot of shifting. You never know what's going on. Of course, it's not as intense as what a hurricane would be, but usually have to wait till it gets closer to fly hurricane hunters into it. So I'm going to go ahead and volunteer as a snow hunter if you all need that, so I can solve this whole sampling idea, and I'll go ahead and volunteer to get in there. But no, it is certainly an issue that we run into where we get these long systems that track for days and days and days, and sometimes they pan out, sometimes they don't, and it seems like the ones that really happen within a 24-hour window that sneak up on us causes more issues. But this one's interesting, and I do think it's a lot like watching a game of pinball take place, because you never know which way it's going to hit.
Well, no doubt about that. And the awesome thing about weather is that it's humbling, right? We don't know until we get a little closer to time, and sometimes even then it is a tough call. And even though we've been mentioning this for the last 10 days and everybody's been like, oh my gosh, the snow lovers are at the edge of their seat and they think they're finally going to get that one big storm, the idea is here we are a few days out and we still don't really know exactly where. What we can say, I think, with some confidence is that it's going to happen somewhere within, a couple 100 miles. But narrowing that zone in as to is that going to be Louisville or even in our viewing area is still tough at this point.
Right. I think the most confidence that I have right now is to say that if you're going from here to Indianapolis, you're probably not going to have a problem. If you want to drive the same direction or same amount of miles in the opposite direction to go to Nashville, you're going to have some issues if you try driving Saturday night or Sunday morning.
Yeah, I see Justin Logan just jumped on. Justin, thanks for taking some time today to pop on. Are you in town or out of town? You don't have to say where.
Out of town.
Okay, good deal. Well, hopefully you're able to get back in town, because I know you're working for part of the weekend, and this is the mess we're talking about. Let's talk a little bit about the precip types and what we expect out of this storm, because as Brian noted and Joe's noted that the edge of this is going to be sharp, meaning some areas along the northern fringe of the precip zone are going to get some heavy snow. The freezing rain chance appears to be a little less of a threat, and then it's just rain, maybe some sleet as you go a little farther to the south, wherever that may be.
Yeah, I think what's so unique about this is it's actually, I shouldn't say unique, it's actually a common thing we deal with here in Ohio Valley, is when we get these large high pressures like this nearby, we get that cold wind, the cold supplier to get it to a frozen form on the northern side, but it could be a double-edged sword where that dry air can just eat alive at the northern fringe of this. So this makes it a huge challenge. I mean, you're going to see the radar light up, but it's going to be remarkable to see how it is cut off there. Which I love the discussion. Was you said, Joe, Ron was working today. He talked about how a single county can be split by snow or no snow, and I think that's a really good way to sum it up. I think that's the challenge we're looking at, which basically means we're trying to throw a dart at a dartboard that's pretty much from E-Town to Louisville right now, and that's a little difficult unless you're a really good athlete.
And of course, I'm very athletic. I don't know if we have an athlete on this whole panel today, to be honest.
I think we don't.
No comment.
Let's talk a little bit. So we mentioned the precip types and that some areas are going to see the heavy snow, then some sleet, and then just rain, depending on where this setup is. But in general, trying to pinpoint something like this across the area, when the pressure from the folks that are going to be watching and wanting to know what's happening is on the higher side, the words that I always say is we're just going to have to wait. We're just not close enough yet. Some people call it conservative forecasting, hedging your bet, whatever you say. But the fact is we just don't know, right?
Oh, yeah, we're always right in that triple point area where, we've got the freezing, frozen, liquid precip. When I worked out in Wyoming, we never had to deal with all that freezing rain type of stuff. It was, you just had to figure out the wind direction, then you could figure out the upslope conditions, and then you just had to figure out the how much snow was going to fall out of it. Here, this is much more difficult, because if you're off by 1/10 of a degree in any direction, 10 miles in any direction, your forecast goes from being a complete accurate you're a genius to a complete bozo, you're a bust. And it's really difficult around here because there's so much local effects that can happen, just within 20 miles. I mean, we saw that yesterday with people down south of here getting 3 to 4 inches of snow, and I got a dusting at my house.
That was so bizarre. And that 3 or 4 inches hit my family, and they're like, yeah, we're snowed in down here. I'm like, what? How'd you get 4.5 inches of snow, right? I mean, I was saying up to an inch. And
right.
We thought a place or two might get 2 inches just outside of the area, but that was sort of an anomaly too. Justin, your thoughts on the weekend system here, what you've seen so far?
Just diving into some of the data right here, as you guys are mentioning, definitely a sharp cutoff to the northern extent of the precipitation. I've noticed, at least just in the last couple of runs, that the model is somewhat kind of shifting at least the northern fringe of that a little bit further up close to the I-64 corridor. But even then, as Brian was just mentioning a minute ago, that northern extent there, that a lot of that dry air just may erode a lot of that precip, and it may show up on radar, but it's not actually reaching the ground. But again, though, the further south you go on 65, our southern counties look like they're going to be, at least at this point, in the heart of more of the wintry precipitation. Grayson County, Hardin County points down to the south.
And I think the telltale sign will be to see that 0Z data, the evening data that comes in today, and to see if the models are indeed onto something with suppressing the system farther to the south, or if indeed that we could see something here in Louisville. Right now, we are literally on the edge. Brian, you're a huge model guru. You look at this stuff in the long range all the time. So what are your thoughts on moving forward with the forecast?
Well, this is one of those that has lit up social media, as I mentioned, because it's been around on the charts for so long. And we're getting discussions, as Joe was talking about. They were just on a conference call with Weather Service office all the way to Albuquerque. And that's the thing. There's social media posts mixing around. You got to keep in mind, when you look at some of these models flying out in all these pictures, the Ozarks are going to get a lot more snow because they're higher up. I mean, they're just going to get a lot more snow out of this kind of a system than we would. And then the portions of the Piedmont area of the Carolinas all the way in the Appalachians, I know Weather Service, I think in Greenville, worded it as a once-in-a-generation snow event, and that got spread around.
Wow.
That's what we're expecting here. That's them, and that is certainly significant. And those are really the two areas on the map that I think are really going to max out on the bigger snow part. It's just right here in the middle. Things get complicated for us. So I really think this is one of those things where everybody just needs to keep in mind of the changes that will happen. Small shifts mean a big deal when it comes to the track that we'll have on this. But right now, it's one of those things that if you are traveling south, this is going to be one of those that's going to be event and could certainly impact travel in a big way on 65. Kevin, one thing that has, I think, really started to show up in really good agreement that I think we're feeling a little more confident on is Sunday. Sunday seems to be standing out as the day that we'll see most of it fall.
Well, and by that point, we're sort of on the backside of the system, so the colder air is in place as well, which would indicate that is the day, as the system yesterday showed signs of speeding up, meaning that the air becomes saturated by Saturday afternoon. We start to see the precip fall Saturday, either late afternoon or into the evening hours, and then by Sunday is the day to watch. Joe, moving forward on your end, some of the things in the models to watch. I mean, I suppose your team is just like our team, watching the next run to see, is this a solid shift south, or now that we're starting to ingest that upper air data, will it start to fold? And obviously, as we get closer to the event, we're going to be a little more precise and accurate.
Right, and we'll most likely be putting a watch area out tomorrow, sometime during the day. If they're real confident after this night, the latest run 0Z tonight through the night, if things start stabilizing it and all the models come in track together, then they might be brave enough to put it out on a midnight shift and isolate the area. But it's by this time tomorrow, we'll definitely have a watch out, and we'll probably be doing a conference call for media and emergency managers tomorrow as well. But one thing I do want to point out is, when these models do this bouncing around like this, I've been in the area now for 12 years, and it seems to me it happens more often than not that our 24-hour forecast, our model the day before, seems to pretty much narrow it down, and then we sometimes flinch right at the last minute when the models like to throw in a little curveball to us, and we go, oh, it's going to be a little farther north, or it's going to be farther south. And so I haven't done any real research on it, but I'm going to start watching it a little more closely, because it does seem like we kind of get tossed in that little trick at the end that says, oh, we better tweak it over this way, and then we'll adjust, and sometimes we get burned that way.
Yeah, and that's why we don't make a whole lot of large adjustments either. And you've heard us talk about this, and our maps have relatively been the same for the last, 12 days?
Back on the 27th. That was the 27th of November, so we were trying to give folks this earliest alert here. And we've been watching the models ever since, but trying to be steady in this. Having a steady hand in a forecast is crucial. And, we've had a question or two on our Facebook Live that's currently running with this forecast hangout about nowcasting. Is this a nowcasting event? And the answer is absolutely. Once this stuff gets on the radar early Sunday, it's going to be a huge thing that we watch minute by minute.
One thing I want to mention real quick, Joe, you talked about the potential that a winter storm watch could come out as early as tomorrow for parts of the area. Can you talk a little bit about how there are many times we could see that get adjusted and fine-tuned to an advisory and a warning area that comes out? And sometimes they look at that, especially the advisory, as a downshift of what is happening, but it's not the case on that.
Right. In fact, we just hosted some meetings here a couple weeks ago. Our national headquarters brought some folks in, emergency managers and some of our school and transportation folks, and they've been doing some research and found out that our whole watch warning advisory system, which I've known for a long time, is sort of misunderstood. There is that misconception that if it goes from a watch to an advisory, it's somehow a downgrade, but that's not what the watch warning advisory system is. It's not in tiers of severity. It's the watch is the precursor saying we're watching this area, and then we come out with the warning for the most dangerous conditions and advisory for the less serious conditions, but still impactful conditions. Because essentially what we'd like people to understand is in a warning, that's the time you want to stay home unless you really have to get out. In an advisory, you can probably drive around, but you're going to be impacted. And if your car doesn't have good tires on it, or if you're not particularly familiar with driving in snow, you're going to have some problems, but it's still livable and you can get around and do some things. But there seems to be this misunderstanding that you're in a winter storm watch and then it just goes to advisory, oh, it's nothing. And then people get some impactful weather and think that somehow we blew it, when it's just a miscommunication on what those two terms mean.
Yeah, and great explanation there, Joe. Thank you. And Brian, I know you're about ready to hit the hay to be up early tomorrow morning.
Well, I wanted to mention real quick, I just actually on the way back home, I stopped by Kroger.
Well, of course you did. Just to send a city into a panic. I know the way you work. I've been in Kroger with you before.
Okay, well, there's two things happened. One, I got bread and milk, and that caused a little bit of a stir in there. Second thing is that when I was approached, they thought I was Kevin Harnett. so really,
wow. I don't know if I would take that as a compliment.
Right. So I took that opportunity to say it is going to snow a foot. I guarantee it. Just stay until you sit and watch. So, no, I'm teasing. But there was already a lot of discussion about it. But I never got a sense, by the way, in the discussions I had, even just being out in public, and I hope that's how people feel watching her now. There's no one really panicking. People are just curious. And you really just want to know. I think it happening over the weekend is going to be a little more of a favor as far as calming things down. There's not as much stress as, say, if this was like a Wednesday that we would be facing this. So that's a good thing. And that gives us some time, too, to get everything out that we need to as far as alerts and stuff.
Well, it saves us from the school kids, that's for sure.
Right.
Definitely.
All right. Well, we'll wrap things up. Final thoughts as we make a little round robin here. We'll start with Ryan Hoke.
Yeah, I want to make sure that everybody who's watching this has the Wave 3 News weather app. That's going to be so crucial. So many changes can happen between now and Sunday. This is not set in stone yet, and it's going to be far from set in stone until we get to about 48 hours from now. So make sure you have that weather app. Follow us on our social media platforms, and I can guarantee every single one of us here will be watching every single model run here. It's going to be fascinating to see how this plays out.
You know, it is so interesting. We spend more time on that app than anything we do. So it is a place to really get the most up-to-date information. Let's go to Justin Logan. Final thoughts?
Yeah, just going to be watching the trends as we all mentioned here. There still is a little bit of a spread. As Ryan mentioned too, things are definitely not set in stone. I can remember back into the 90s as a kid, and it was a storm that was southeast track, and it was supposed to be all eastern Kentucky, southeast Kentucky. We woke up the next morning and it was a different scene waking up. So not saying that that's going to be the case at all, but that just goes to show you that really 50, 60 miles can make a huge difference. And that's something that will obviously be pinning down in the next couple of days. So just like I said, a 50-mile shift to the north can bring it up 64 corridor. But right now, all impact's still a possibility. So that'll be something that I'm going to pay close attention to. Freezing rain, sleet, or is it just snow? That'll be something we'll all watch the next couple of days.
Yeah, miles make a difference. So we've seen that already a time or two this year, and it'll be something that we watch. And we still have a little bit of time. That's the great part. It's just Thursday. This is not an impactful system until the weekend, and we're talking late in the weekend for the most part. Joe Sullivan, we always appreciate our partnership with the National Weather Service. Your final thoughts?
Well, obviously I can't tell you to look at your app because we don't have one, but we're partners with everybody. But the main thing is that just don't take off driving without looking at the weather. And something as simple as looking at Google Maps to see where the orange and red lines are should tell you something if you're driving into an area that has snow. If you see those orange and red lines, don't drive into it because you're going to get stuck on the roads, and that's not going to benefit anyone. So just play it smart, have good weather situation awareness.
Absolutely. Being prepared is the key. Joe, thank you. And Brian, I see you've picked up the babies there. So,
yeah, Adobe just was aggravating me. I thought he was going to bark in a second. And you don't want that, I assure you. What then I wanted to say, tomorrow morning, of course, on Sunrise, Tawana and myself will be talking about how things are looking as far as any icy patches for tonight's moisture moving through the area. But we'll also talk too about what's happening with the system, and of course the blog tomorrow will come out as well. My advice to you guys is that if you really just want to enjoy some snowfall on a break, head to the Smoky Mountains in the next 24 hours and then call into work for like the good chunk of early next week, because that is definitely going to be one of their bigger events. And here's the thing, and this is where it's important that we're going to be your sources here, our local folks, because the national news is certainly going to focus on what's going to happen in the Carolinas and the Appalachians, and first really in the Plains, but eventually there. I think that's going to be the headline. So don't take that as a sign that nothing's happening here. Just let everybody know that we are going to be watching carefully.
Yeah, this is going to be something you're going to hear a whole lot about over the next few days, starting today out to our west and moving across the entire country over the next, through at least Sunday into Monday. So we hope you will stay with us as we continue to track it. We hope that you've liked our inaugural Wave 3 News weather hangout here.
Yay.
Yeah, right. We got it off and right. You have no idea. I think Ryan has us strung up. I'm surprised I've not been electrocuted back here with everything that is hooked up. I don't even know how this is working, frankly. I feel like we've sent another man to the moon today.
Yeah, you don't see all the wires that are strung across here and how many loops we have to go through to get all this audio up. So I'm happy it's working, and I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us today. It's been a big help to have everybody on board.
All right, we'll say goodbye
Thanks
for now.
me.
We will try to do this again tomorrow preceding the storm, and then we will be here working feverishly through the weekend. Justin, myself, whoever else is called in over the weekend will be here for you. So, yeah. And it could be Brian. It could be Tawana. If we can get Lauren in here, that would be a really big snow if you see all of us in here. Let's hope that's not the case. Anyway, we're having fun with you today. We appreciate everybody being here. I'll see you tonight on Wave 3 News, and we'll have updates constantly till the storm arrives.
Bots.
See you guys.
See ya.